Well, good morning. What an awesome song to start worship with. Jesus Christ, my living hope. That's a great one, right? Well, my name is Julie Staub, and I'm part of the staff at Trinity, and I'm doing the announcements today. So I've got 3 of them for you. But before we get there, I do want to say a special welcome to those who are guests and visitors. If this is your first time here, maybe you've been here a little bit, but you haven't stopped at that post that's right at the entrance when you come in, we would love to meet you and have a face-to-face conversation and say, welcome to Trinity. We've got a gift for you. So be sure to stop there. And for those of you that are Trinity members or you've been around a while, if you ever have questions about how to get signed up for something or about the next steps, anything like that, there's a next step station. So we want to point you there to go chat with one of our next steps guides. And I do want to say welcome to those who are watching online. I give a shout out to Cindy Miller and to Tammy Doria for all the work that they do online hosting that service. We are just grateful to be together to worship this morning. So I've got 3 quick announcements. The very first one, I call it a win-win-win. It's our Parents' Night Out. So the first win is for parents with littles. I see some out there right now. You can have a night away. So bring your kids. That's your win. You get opportunity to go out and do whatever it is you want to do with your time. But the kids, it's a win for them because they get to hang out with some really cool Trinity students. And so they'll have fun and they'll be in a safe and cared for place. And then the third win is that this is an opportunity. Well, it's a free event. It's an opportunity for you to give a free will offering that helps to offset the cost of the summer camps for our students. And so it's a win-win-win. Now, the second thing I want to tell you about is something I'm passionate about. One of my focuses is women's ministry. And we have an event coming up. You've likely heard about it. It's called the IF Gathering, and we're just under 3 weeks away. Our goal is for 250 women from across the Omaha Metro here in this space, worshiping together, learning from great teachers, and most importantly, connecting with one another. I know sometimes as women, we can feel lonely, we can feel we're so busy taking care of all of the needs and the things of our family, but this is a great opportunity for us to gather together, be Jesus with skin on, enjoy one another's company while we get to experience Christ. So please be sure to sign up for that. We'd love to fill this space. We right now, I think, have 96 registrants, so that's pretty exciting if you ask me. Yeah, God's doing good stuff. And then the last thing I want to share about is February 14th. Now, for most people, you might think Valentine's Day, but in the life of the church, this is Ash Wednesday. And this is really an important part of our life as followers of Jesus because it's where Jesus takes his first step toward the cross. And apart from the cross, we are all hopeless. And so this is a great journey for us to participate. And so I want to encourage all of us here today, those watching online, if you're able to, come worship on Wednesday night. I think all the details are behind me. I'm not going to turn around. I'll get dizzy. But I also want to let you know that during Lent, normally we've had a worship service on Wednesday evenings. This year we're doing something different. It's going to be a Bible study. Now, some of you have never cracked your Bibles open. It's okay. Still come. There's a table of contents in the front. You'll know right where you need to be. Some of you might consider yourself an expert. Great. Come alongside those who are newbies. But this is really important for our life as the body of Christ. Opening God's Word, learning who He is, learning His character, learning who we are, and learning that the hope that He has for us. So we invite everybody to come to that on Wednesday nights. The last thing I want to do is point our attention to the screen as we are going to watch Amanda share a little bit about one of our summer camps coming up for our 4th and 5th grade students. So, thank you.
Hi church, we're a little over a month away from our 4th and 5th grade camp, Camp Ascend. This is an exciting event because it will be the first time ever that we are hosting a camp for this age group, and it's perfect timing before some of our kids ascend to Trinity students and are invited to summer camps. Camp Ascend is happening out at Carol Joy Holing, only about 30 minutes away from us here at Trinity Church. And camp is going to be less than 24 hours in total, which is a great intro for our younger kids. But while it may be short, camp is going to be packed with fun, classic camp activities, and 2 sessions on what it means to be a godly friend and look for godly friends. Our goal for this camp is to help your kids bond closer with others in their age range, pour into them spiritually at this transitional age, and also experience a little bit of independence in a safe and secure place, with leaders outside of their own home who love and care for them. We are also so excited to be joined by Trinity Church, a local church with a wonderful kids ministry, but not quite large enough to head off to a camp of their own. Their kids ministry, along with their children's minister, Soraya, are very excited to join us. So tell your 4th and 5th grade neighbours, friends, or kids that camp is happening and they are not going to want to miss out. I personally am very excited for our amazing race along the campsite, along with some fun Western-themed challenges on the old-timey Western Front we'll be lodging in while we're there. You can register online at trinitylife.org/events on the Camp Ascend page, or head to the Next Steps desk after service and someone will help you get signed up. See you there.
Good morning, church. I wanted to take a moment today and continue a celebration that we had yesterday here at Trinity. At 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, Pastor Matt was ordained into the ministry of Word and Sacraments. And the ordination service is, in many respects, the final step in a journey that Matt has been on for many years, very intentionally for the last 6 years, but prior to that, there was discernment and prayer as a part of his process. For the 6 years, he has been in seminary, full-time husband, full-time father, and full-time church worker here at Trinity. And yesterday we had an awesome celebration. The bishop was here. There were pastors from our synod that were here. Many of you were also here. And it is that step that makes it official for Matt to be a pastor in the church. And prior to today, we have been very careful about calling Matt pastor because that is an accolade or a title given to those who have been ordained. And now that he is ordained, it is officially Pastor Matt. And what a joy it is to have this partner in ministry coming alongside me in a new way, and certainly more importantly, alongside the congregation to serve and to lead in ministry here at Trinity. And so I wanted to share that with you if you were not able to be here yesterday, and encourage you to give Matt a word of congratulations, of encouragement, of joy. It is a big moment in a pastor's life. And so I wanted to share that with you this morning, and now I want to invite Nathan to come out and share the message today.
Thank you, Pastor Eric. Yeah, if we want to oh, Matt was standing right there. That was he's in the back now. He's all the way in the back. Can we celebrate Matt together as a church? We're very, very excited for that. He was sitting there a second ago. He must have left, so we didn't clap for him. But we're going to do it anyways. That's how we get him. Guys, welcome to church. My name is Nathan. I'm the creative arts minister here. If I don't know you, I'd love to get to know you afterwards. But I'm really excited to bring the word with you guys this morning. A couple things I want to talk about before we get started. The first one is about those camps. You heard our children's minister, Amanda, mention that the 4th and 5th grade camp, this is the first time we're doing this camp for this age group, and we're so excited. We're partnering with another church who's a little smaller, and so they wouldn't be able to get a camp probably on their own. And so we're really excited we made that connection. They're going to bring some kids with theirs to our camp, but we also have plenty of space left over for our 4th and 5th graders here. We've also got a high school camp happening in June and a middle school camp happening in July. So if you've got kids in your age groups who are in those age groups and they want to go to camp, make sure you get them signed up. I'm going to cough real quick. I nailed it. There we go. Perfect timing, right? No, sorry guys. Next thing I want to talk to you about is Holy Week. So we talked last week how during the week of Easter, leading up to that with Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and our Easter Sunday services, we're looking for some extra help for some of those services. We're looking for people, we're calling them actors, to maybe do some scripture reading, maybe a skit or a sketch or something, maybe just present a monologue or something. We have some cool ideas, but we're looking for people who are interested in acting for our Easter services, kind of specifically that Good Friday and Easter Sunday. And we're also looking for people to join a choir for these services, the 9 and 10 o'clock services. Our 8 a.m. has a choir most Sundays, and it's fantastic. And so we got a little jealous over here, so we're going to try and get an Easter choir of our own. So if you're interested in either of those positions, helping on and serving with us, please let me know afterwards. You can catch me afterwards, or you can also sign up at trinitylife.org/Easter, or also on our events page. If you want to get signed up, we will get you signed up so you can help us out. Church, last week was our Vision Sunday. That's kind of our annual, yearly kind of reset, telling us what the year is going to look like for us as a church. It also lined up perfectly with our annual meeting, where we vote for and elect new members to our committees and our councils. And so we're so excited for the people that joined those committees. Julie sent a wonderful email out last week. I think it's called Leadership Update or something like that. You can search for that if you want to see those names again of the people who entered those new positions. Or come check us out after the service at the Next Steps or Guest Center. We'll be able to show that email to you and get you signed up so you can receive those emails yourself. But we celebrated a lot of people joining those committees and councils, but we also wanted to take a minute this week and celebrate the people who are leaving those positions, who are stepping out of their committees and their councils. And I just wanted to read you guys a couple names. If they're in here in the room, I know a couple people are, I'd love for you to stand when your name is called, and we're going to celebrate these people together. But we had 3 people finish their council 3-year terms serving on our council. That was Carrie Nash, Rachel Staub, and Josh Treshmer. They have to stand, Carrie. I told you to stand, not just stick a hand up. So if we can celebrate and thank them. Rachel, I know, has been here doing some work this morning, and Josh was around as well. So if you see any of them, just make sure you thank them for their service on the council. Then next, we had our endowment committee. This was the committee that helps oversee some specific finances that come into the church, and there's a whole team of people that do that. They usually serve a 5-year term with that, so it's a pretty long time of service, and we're so grateful for Brittany Fahrenkrog, who was on this team, finished her 5-year engagement with there and was able to step out of that team. So we're so excited for them. If you see her afterwards, please, maybe not. Gone? Yeah. Okay. If you see her afterwards, then make sure you thank them. But we're also going to thank her right now because who knows? She can feel it. We especially love that team because they give us extra money when we want it. So it's always nice to keep them on our good side. No, I'm just kidding. And then lastly, it was our nominating committee. This is the team that helps lift up people in the congregation for those roles, other roles in the church that we just talked about. And several people finished their roles there. Sharon Bernady, Siobhan Erb, Kylie Cruz, and Casey Hirschfeld finished their time on those committees. Those people I know are in here, so you have to stand where you are. Thank you so much. And we're thankful for those guys as well. And then lastly, there was one more member of council who was kicked out, basically, if that's what you're going to ask about afterwards. No, I'm just kidding. Marcus Smith was our council president, and he hadn't finished his term, but him and his wife, who've been here for close to 15 years, 14 years, going on 15 years, been here for a very long time. They will actually be leaving Omaha, moving to Kansas City, I believe, in just the next few weeks. And they have been a wonderful part of our church for many, many years. I know Marcus has served on the council for a long time. He's personally been a great friend and mentor to me while I've been here as well. His wife, Kathy, served on our HR team in so many ways and really helped us through some struggles and some really exciting times with that as well. And we are so grateful for everything they brought. So I'm going to ask them to stand. And church, I'm also going to ask you to stand as well and just give some thanks for Marcus and Kathy if we can appreciate their time here. We're going to miss those guys quite a bit. I know that they prepared a little bit of a gathering after the service, I think, just out in the commons area. They just want to say thank you and hi and bye to all of you. So make sure you catch them after the service, as well as everyone else I mentioned. I believe also Amanda had set up a guest book, so kind of like a goodbye book. It's just around the corner, I believe. Is that right? Yep. In one of these alcoves out here, it's on a little table. Hopefully you'll see that. Write a little message to Marcus and Kathy so that they remember us when they move all the way south to wherever they're heading there. But we are very blessed for all that you guys have done for us, and we're thankful for all that you guys are going to do at your new church home wherever you land. All right, you guys ready to kick it off? I got to turn my thing on, right? There you go. Thank you, Delaney. Boom, here we go. We are in the service called Different, right? We're towards the end of this series because we're on week 4 of about 5. Chris is going to finish this off next week, which I'm really excited about. And if you were here last week for our Vision Sunday service, you heard Pastor Eric explain that we as a staff have landed around this idea for the year, different because of Jesus. You're going to see that a bit more later. But we've landed on this to be our annual theme. And what that kind of means is that throughout the year, the messages and some of the planning and the services that we decide to work through is all going to be based around this idea that we are called, not suggested, not asked kindly, we are called to be different because of Jesus, right? And so that's our theme for the whole year. And with that, uniquely this year, we plan to have every single sermon that you hear, most of them, there may be some unique ones in there, but we're planning this whole year to unpack that theme in really different and unique ways, right? So for the first of the year, we were just kind of explaining the theme to you, really how we felt called to really dive into this idea that we are meant to be set apart, different from the world because Jesus called us to it. And so the whole year is going to unpack that. Next, we're going to be entering our Lenten season, which is awesome. It's almost like we planned it like that. We did. But Lenten is a season all about being different, right? So as we work through that season, it'll make a lot of sense for our Sunday sermons and our Bible studies throughout the week. And then after that, we're going to look at what it looks like to be a different church in the world today. And so we're really excited. Hopefully you guys will join with us throughout the year as we enter through this series. I'm just really, really excited to spend the whole year diving into something that I think is so important. So in the first week of January, Pastor Eric kicked off this series, right, talking about as followers of Jesus, our lives are based on a different foundation, right? That was the words that we used, the foundation. The basis of the decisions we make and who we are as people, they need to be rooted in something different than what the world would tell us, right? The world would probably tell us that you need to build your foundations on financial stability, right? You need to make enough money, take care of your family, and then you're good to go. You need to accumulate things so you're comfortable, so your life is good, and then boom, you got it. You built your life on a good foundation. But we know that's not really the case, right, church? As difficult as it is sometimes, our foundation is built on Jesus, not one of accumulating things. And I loved that sermon, right? The next week, Pastor Matt spoke to us about how our identity has to be different because of Jesus. And I loved the sermon. This is one of my favorite topics to discuss. And we do Bible studies as a staff before we preach these sermons. And this was such an exciting one because I think, and I think that most of you would agree, I think this problem of identity is maybe the root cause of a lot of struggles that are happening in our world today, in this country, in our state, in our lives. I think a lot of it revolves around identity, right? The world is now more focused than ever before on individuality, right? How we identify ourselves and how other people have to identify us because of my individuality. Right? And before you leave here saying, man, Nathan nailed it today. All those people out there need to stop worried about their identities and what I would have to call them and this and that. That's not what I mean, church. Okay? Hear that very clearly. I feel confident in saying that every time I preach, and I would say most of the time that Pastor Eric or Pastor Matt or any of our other ministers on staff who preach to you, I feel confident saying that when we preach to you, who we are not preaching to are people out there. What does that mean? I'm not preaching to you about your neighbor. I'm not preaching to you about the person sitting next to you. Pastor Matt and Pastor Eric aren't preaching to you so that you go home and text your friend, man, you should have heard that sermon. That really was for you, right? That's not why we're doing this. Every time we get up here, we proclaim the love of Jesus and the calling that we have, that you have as individuals to be the Jesus in someone else's life. So we're not preaching so that other people have an experience. We're preaching so that you do, and that all of us individually have a relationship and can identify that. Does that make sense? We never hope to give you words or weapons that you can go out and then, cast hatred onto other people because of who they are, what they do. That's not why we're here. And it's okay, right, to find your identity in yourself. We're not telling you to throw out who you are or your heritage or your history. That's not what we're asking. But if who you are, and maybe a better way to say that is what you do, if the things that you do, the way you act, if those are based on the color of your skin or where you were born or where your great-great-grandparents were from, if they're based on anything outside of Jesus, then we have missed the point. I think we've probably missed our identity. But that's not my sermon today. That was Matt's sermon, so go back and listen to it because it was a great one. And then last week for Vision Sunday, Pastor Eric unpacked how our hearts are made differently. More specifically, he used the word softened by Jesus, and I love this. Church, can I tell you, when I was a young'un, I was not exactly the picture of masculinity. I know it's hard to believe now with my wonderful beard and ruggedness, but I wasn't exactly the most manly little kid around. But I lived in like a rural town. Like there was tractors at my high school, like in the parking lot, and there were cornfields across the street. Maybe hence the tractors. I actually don't know. But I lived in a rural area. It was a tough area, it was a manly area, farmers and outdoors, and it was fun. And I enjoyed that portion. But I also had more fun in school doing show choir. Any show choir people? Woot woot. Yeah, there we go. I like show choir, and I loved music and musicals, right? I wasn't super into the other things, but I remember so clearly as a young man in church being preached at that the heart of God, especially for men, is a masculine heart. It's a tough heart that doesn't take anything, right? It's a calloused heart that won't let anyone push us around, and I'm going to stand up for God, and I'm going to go on men's camping trips and listen to AC/DC, and there's going to be a motorcycle on stage for no reason at one of our conferences, right? We've seen that before. And I like those things. Really, I do. They're cool. I'm actually come around on a lot of those things. I really want a motorcycle. If you guys want to tell my wife to let me get a motorcycle, maybe do that. That'd be awesome. She's sitting back there. Just kidding. That's not manly to have someone else tell their wife they want a motorcycle, so we'll skip that one. But I remember those things, thinking that that's what the heart of God is, that he wants us to be masculine. And so when Pastor Eric preached on what it meant to have a softened heart, I loved it. If we try and paint Jesus to be who we want him to be, we're going to get it wrong. But if we look at the self-portrait, in my notes it says hold up Bible, but I left my Bible in the back, I apologize. If we look at the self-portrait of this Bible that I have, that's who Jesus is. Not the picture that we've made him. I loved that sermon. Thank you, Pastor Eric. Love is not masculine or feminine. It's not manly or girly. Love is holy, and softened hearts are ones that are overflowing with love. And so here we're at week 4 of this series, different because of Jesus, and we're going to continue to kick this off, and we're going to start the sermon today. He says start 12 minutes into a sermon, so that's funny, but promise, we're going to make sense. We're going to start today. We're going to spend the bulk of our time in the book of Luke. We're going to look at 2 stories in there, but I love to start with my own story, if that's okay, and it's a good one, I promise. It's about lives being transformed by Jesus, right? We love those. I had a friend named Casey growing up, right? It's not this Casey. I said I would say that. It's a different Casey, I promise. I had a friend named Casey growing up. And Casey was like a really interesting dude. His whole life, Casey was always interesting. When he was really young, he was super good at math, right? He could see a math problem on like a board or something, and it looked like those movies where the numbers are like swirling around their head. He's like, beep, boop, beep, 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 boop, boop. And then he says the number, right? It looked like that. We couldn't see the numbers, but I assumed they were there. He was really good at math, and that was cool. And then we all got a little older. And rightly so, we stopped caring about math, because who cares about math, am I right, guys? But he was still cool, because at this point, we were all a little older. We had our own places, maybe, lived in these tiny apartments. And he would throw these parties. And they weren't like galas or balls or something. But they were just like fun get-togethers. They were usually safe. They weren't too wild, but we had fun games. We played exciting games. We ate good food. We had good fellowship with each other. It was awesome. He was the guy who threw parties, and we wanted to spend time there. And then again, you get older. You can't go to parties as much. You can't go out as much. You've got responsibilities, right? Some of us, at least. And he was still a cool guy. And one thing about Casey that I think is interesting is Casey is what you would call a short king. Does anybody know what a short king is? Raise your hand if you know what short king is. All the young people there raise their hands. Yep, that's right. So if you need help afterwards, grab a young person. A short king is what people, the youth of today, call other people who are just short. But that's insulting. So you say short king, and then it's like you're complimenting them, right? Because you're calling them a king. So that's what they say nowadays. Casey was the predecessor of a short king. He was a pretty short guy. His height was 2 numbers, 1 foot, 1 inches. My son, my 4-year-old, could probably count that high, so it wasn't exactly a point of pride how tall he was, right? He was a short guy, but he was really cool, and he commanded the room. He was always personable and friendly, and people liked to be around him. And so Casey, I remember Casey's got this job. He started working in finance. I think it was like insurance maybe, or maybe just some sort of financial institution. He started working in finance. And because he was good with numbers, right, which still stuck around, and he was personable, he was friendly, he did a good job kind of rising through the ranks and working up in the job. And he started to make a lot more money, as you do. And then what happened is he started to live like he was making more money, right? Like he had a car that not only worked all the time, but it had this little screen on it, and sometimes that screen would show you what was behind the car. What? That's like witchcraft. That's like rich people stuff. And you're like, I'm looking here and I can see back there. Oh my gosh. It's crazy. It's crazy. He started living like he made a bit more money. And finally, we realized enough, and so some of us started to say, "Okay, what do you do? Like, how are you earning all this? And also, are you hiring? Do you have a job for me? Can I come work with you?" Right? And it turned out Casey was hiring because they were kind of always hiring. The way that Casey made his money, he would hire people to work for him, and then they would go and make their money selling things or whatever. But a little bit of what they made, Casey got because he hired them, right? And then I think at a certain point, a little bit of what Casey made from those people, he had to give to his boss, the person who hired him. Do you see where I'm going with this? We kind of understand the nature of Casey's work. It seemed seedy, it seemed sketchy to us at the time, but we didn't ask any questions because he was often buying the food. So you don't bring it up. And it was really cool because a lot of us in that friend group who knew Casey, we were Christians. A lot of us we went to churches together, we did, events together and whatnot. But it never really came up, I guess, around Casey. We didn't bring it up. And he's a grown man, he's a single adult, he can do whatever he wants. He wasn't breaking any laws, right? But it just never came up that we maybe had a better life for Casey. And then one weekend, Casey texts our group chat. It's like a text message with a lot of people in it, if you didn't need that. He texted the chat, and he mentioned that he had found, how did he say it? He'd found a social media influencer, or he's scrolling through whatever. Somebody came up, and it was like a influencer, and he was moved by what they said. And then he found out that person's coming near our area to give like a TED Talk or a speech or something. And so he's like, we should go. Like, this person, it's great. And most of us had never heard of the person, or were busy, so it didn't end up going. But Casey did. Casey went. And Casey's life was transformed, guys. He was a different person after this conference than he was before. Right? And he comes back to us and he starts telling us and pitching us on this guy that he heard about named Jesus. And how crazy this guy's life was, and how it reframed Casey's life and the way that he viewed things and what he was going to do. And finally, when we got him to calm down, we were like, hey, we know who Jesus is. Like, thank you for the presentation, but I know, yeah, that's great. I know who Jesus is. And he finally calmed down, maybe more than calmed down. Maybe he was a little sad, and he said, you guys knew about this guy and you didn't tell me? Oh, right? He did that on purpose. And Casey ended up selling that car with a backup camera. One of our friends was living with their aunt, I think, and she needed surgery or something, and like everybody, no one can afford surgery ever, anytime ever. And so she needed the surgery, and Casey sold that car with backup camera, bought a little beater, drove it around, but gave that money to help there. And he did stuff like that all the time. He constantly had gift cards in his pockets to restaurants, but they were small, usually fast food restaurants, but he would give them out to houseless people or young families at the mall or kids or whatever. If he'd see them and they're, we're close to a McDonald's, hey, grab a lunch. This would be cool. He did stuff like that all the time. And it was so cool. How many people have seen someone transform in front of them, become a different person because of Jesus, right? Isn't it awesome? It was super weird, but it was really cool to watch. The first story we're going to look at in Luke is in chapter 18, starting around verse 18. I'm going to read through the whole thing. We're going to barrel through it. This is the Message version, so it might look a little different, but we're going to be okay, I promise. It says this: One day, one of the local officials asked him, "Good teacher, what must I do to deserve eternal life?" Jesus said, "Why are you calling me good? No one is good, only God." Right? You know the commandments, though, don't you? No illicit sex, no killing, no stealing, no lying, honor your father and mother. You know these ones, right? He's saying to this guy. And the guy says, yeah, I've kept all of those for as long as I can remember. And then Jesus says this. He said, well, then there's only one thing left for you to do. Sell everything that you own, give all that money away to the poor, because you're going to have riches in heaven, but give it away. And then come hang out with me, and then the real work begins, right? And that guy was pumped. He sprinted home, listed everything on eBay. Great story ending. No, he was really bummed, right? This was the last thing that the official expected to hear. He was very rich and became terribly sad. He was holding on tight to a lot of things and not about to let them go. Seeing this reaction, Jesus said, "Do you have any idea how difficult it is for people who have it all to enter God's kingdom? I'd say it's easier to thread a camel through a needle's eye than get a rich person into God's kingdom." "Then who has any chance at all?" the others asked. And Jesus said this: "No chance at all," Jesus said, "if you think you can pull it off by yourself. But you have every chance in the world if you trust God to do it." Some of you are maybe looking at the clock or your watches and thinking, Nathan, you do not have a lot of time to talk left. And you just finished your first story. How are you going to wrap this up? How are you going to put a bow on this? How are our lives supposed to be different? You're supposed to tell me how my life is different because of Jesus. We're going to wrap it up, I promise. Okay? But before that, I have to tell you something. And this is the part I'm actually kind of nervous about. I'm not joking. This is serious. That story I told you about Casey was entirely made up. I did not have a friend named Casey. I have friends named Casey, sorry. Unrelated. I made that story up. I don't know anybody named Casey. And some of you are probably saying, obviously that story was made up. We didn't believe you, Nathan, because that's a crazy story. Nobody does that. But hopefully a couple of you got fooled. But what's really cool, I think, is that it's actually basically the exact story of our friend Zacchaeus that we read in our second Bible story in Luke. And this one's in 19, the next chapter. It says this. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man there by the name of Zacchaeus, he was a chief tax collector and was very wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead, climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. But then other people saw what was happening and began to mutter, he has gone to be the guest of a sinner. Ooh. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. I'm sorry that I lied about Casey. But I think that real transformation in our lives today looks a bit like Zacchaeus, and maybe it would look a little bit like Casey. I'm not telling you have to go sell your car. But I am telling you that our lives have to be different because of Jesus. Every single one of us has something to change, an area to grow in, to become a little bit more like Jesus. It doesn't mean you have to change all of who you are, right? Who you are at your core. It's not that scary, okay? But it is a little scary to let go of things that are important to you so you can be more like Jesus. It's a little scary to step out of your comfortableness, to step out of tradition, maybe, to step out of what's easy, to be a little bit more like Jesus. Because living like Jesus is actually really hard and maybe not comfortable at all, right? And maybe it's uncomfortable for us today because we're holding on very tightly to something that we have to let go because of Jesus. Maybe you're holding on to a lifestyle that you need to let go of. Maybe you need to let go of that stuff that you watch, or those things that you read, that news channel that's always on, the little conversations that you and your family have about the neighbors, or the people that stole your parking spot at work, right? All of us have something to change. Maybe for you, getting uncomfortable means that you need to expand your grace and extend your love so wide that it covers even the people that you disagree with. Maybe it even covers people that you strongly disagree with, that you struggle to accept. But to transform means that you choose to love those people because Jesus absolutely does. I promise you that when I started writing this message, I had every intention to say, here are 5 ways that your life should change because of Jesus. And then I thought, 5 doesn't seem like a big enough number. Maybe I can do more. And then I thought, that's too many numbers. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to pivot, right? So I took about 3 steps back, and rather than telling you all the ways that Jesus can change your life, I'm here to tell you that Jesus is going to change your life. And if your life isn't changed yet, that's okay. Stick with Jesus. There is not a single person in this room or in the last service or in the 8 a.m. or in the kids' wing or in the students on Wednesday. There's not a person in this room or any other room who does not need to change something to be more like Jesus. And I wouldn't list them all because I might hurt someone's feelings, and I never want to do that. But we have to do something. because of Jesus, because of who he is and what he did, we have to change. And that may sound easy. Nathan, you're just telling me that because Jesus was a good person, now our lives have to be different. Isn't that literally just the gospel? Yes. But it's not that easy. It is that simple, but I promise you, it's not that easy. And what I think is pretty cool about that is that there's not like a cutoff point, right? You're not too young to be transformed by Jesus. You're definitely not too old to be transformed by Jesus. You're not too manly to be transformed or too girly, right? I think that's awesome. And so if I had one point to make today, it would be this one. You are not done changing to be more like Jesus. All of us have something to do to be more like Jesus. And I encourage you this week, this afternoon and tomorrow, and every day the rest of the week, and every week the rest of this month, and every month the rest of this year, because that finishes that little idiom well, I promise you have something to change to become more like Jesus. And I encourage you to figure out what it is and what you can do about it. Can I pray, church? Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for this church. Thank you for this congregation and this service, God. Thank you for bringing people together who want to fellowship with each other, God, and experience you each week. God, we're thankful that you've called us to be different. You've called us to be set apart. And I pray that as we go about our weeks, we strive to be a little bit more like you, just a little bit every day, letting go of what we need to let go of, extending the grace that you've given us to the people that deserve it in our life, and that's everyone, God. God, we love you, and it's in your name that we pray. Amen.